Now, a number of truck drivers have been blocking up the Eastlink Bridge in Dublin for several hours today as part of a protest over rising fuel prices. Their demands are price caps on petrol, price caps on diesel and home heating fuel, the scrapping of the carbon tax, and just to throw it in for odd measure then, of course, the resignation of Transport Minister Eamon Ryan. So no lack of ambition in terms of that list of demands. I was walking around the city centre myself earlier on. I'd say it's probably like an incipient protest that wasn't that big today. It could have been a lot worse, but I would suspect that it's going to grow and develop a momentum of its own as the cost pressures continue to flow through the economy. But what does it all mean in terms of fuel for business? How did today go? I'm joined to discuss this Alan Robinson, who is the CEO of Dublin's Docklands Business Forum, and I've also Michael Collins, who is an independent TD for Cork Southwest. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome to The Hard Shoulder.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emmett.
Alan, if I can go to you first, you're obviously on the front line. Can you just give us an idea how badly things were disrupted down there today? We're getting very conflicting reports.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as bad as was feared. There was a number of trucks. I think it was 27 I read somewhere, but I was cycling around, it seemed like about 30 or so, but even that small amount of trucks were able to cause absolute chaos on the far eastern end of Docklands. So you're talking about the East Wall Road, which is the road along Dublin Port. Then you're talking about the Eastlink Bridge, which is only two small lanes each side. And you're talking about the southern access into Docklands, which is down from Ringsend and Irishtown along Shoremore Road.
Yeah, and I'm also conscious that it's only 4:10, so those who are in the city still have to get out yet for the evening commute. So they're all still in place, right?
It's getting better now. It's easing up, so the reports are that I'm hearing. But look, I think it caused a huge amount of problems. There's a context to this. There's more than just a context of fuel prices to this. The area of the city they hit produces 9% of the country's GDP. It's home to 9 out of 10 of the world tech leaders, and it has half the world's leading banks located there, and the European headquarters of all those organisations in Docklands. It's created 50,000 jobs, and it's an area of the city, and the only area of the city that's really competing with our peer cities abroad, like London, like Paris, like Frankfurt. And unfortunately, today's exercise did the city and the country's reputational value great harm at a time when we're competing as best we can with competitor cities, and it made life very difficult for people that are simply just trying to do a day's work.
And what do you say to the argument that they say, look, it's a protest, it has to hurt, that's the whole point?
Well, look, it doesn't. We are all being impacted by rising fuel prices, and it is certainly the case. They are being hit more than others, and you know they have all our sympathies, I think, in that regard. But turning on ourselves isn't going to solve this problem.
No,
turning on other people that are trying to do a day's work and causing those people disruption and damaging those people's chance to earn a living is simply not a feasible approach. And it's not true to say you need to make everybody's life miserable to get your point across. There are other ways and other very effective ways in a day of mass communications that we have of getting your point across.
Yeah, and we'll be hearing some of those points, different points, counterpoints as well later on in the show. Let me bring Michael Collins in. Michael, I mean, looking at what these group, and they are not part of the official haulage representative body, it's always important to mention that because we're always kind of trying to gauge how representative any group of protesters is. But what I notice about what they're asking for price caps on petrol, diesel, home heating fuel, the scrapping of the carbon tax, and as I said, and I wasn't trying to be humorous, but also asking for Eamon Ryan to go. But in terms of those first few items, I mean, there's no way an Irish government is going to just announce overnight caps on prices of petrol, diesel and home heating fuel. So there's nothing there apart from the Eamon Ryan piece and the carbon tax, which is being debated live at the moment, even this evening in government buildings, we understand. But the rest of those items on that shopping list, they ain't just going to happen, isn't that right?
A lot of them are not going to happen, unfortunately. But the problem is, and I can sympathise and I can understand what Alan is saying here, but the problem is these hauliers, farm contractors, bus operators, fishing trawler owners are in a desperate situation. They want to continue to go out and do their daily work. They don't want to be in Dublin today or anywhere else either. They want to be hauling food, goods, or whatever they want to the shelf. It's not going to happen. It's not going to continue to happen if the price of fuel continues to stay at the price it is. The gentleman that was on there, well, it goes to €330 to fill his lorry, gone to €715. That's an astonishing. Some of these people go through most of that in a day. That's an astonishing increase, and our government has laid idly by. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where people have no other choice, as they feel, because their voice is not being heard inside in the Dáil, only to unfortunately go up to Dublin and try to send a very clear message in Dublin. The problem is, Micheál Martin was outside in Europe 3 weeks ago pleading with a VAT decrease. He was supposed to have got some kind of a green light, he claimed, to do that and come back to this country and deliver that. That would have helped here. That would have alleviated this protest. But he fell asleep at the wheel. Fell asleep at the wheel. And Eamon Ryan is dreaming, and he's continuing with this carbon tax dream that he's got. He's got no solution, and he's got to inflict further pain. And the problem is, Eamon, we're going to end up with no food on the shelf. And that's the facts.
But Michael, we all feel the same, but there's probably not a single text that's going to come in today that says I'm happy with the price of petrol or diesel, right? So we're all agreed on that. But what can the government do, apart from which they have done already, reducing excise duty, for example? There is the whole thing about carbon tax, I understand, and I said park that for a second because it is being live debated. But apart from those things, which are kind of tinkerings to some degree, there's not a single thing the government can do about the price of oil, the price of gas on international markets. Isn't that a fact, which we politicians don't like to admit?
There's a lot of other countries in Europe have given back to their country bigger decreases in the excise duty than we've done. We can park the carbon tax because we discussed that inside the Dáil last week. There's a carbon tax increase. How could you go out in cap in hand or Taoiseach to Europe looking for a decrease in the excise duty and then put it back up himself when he comes back on a carbon tax in May? This is what the country is facing, and we have to stop somewhere.
Did you know, by the way, it's being discussed this evening, and I'll get your reaction to this because it's kind of fairly fresh news, that the public service obligation, which for those who don't know what it is a levy that goes onto every single bill to help sustainable energy targets and so on. It's not huge, about 50 or 60 euros a year, so I'm not trying to proclaim it's a massive, but if that was to come off, would you welcome it?
Certainly I would, but that's only €1 maybe a week or less than €1 a week for some. And that's going nowhere near where we're going. Families and ordinary mothers and fathers are suffering. And unfortunately, the whole situation is mainly in rural Ireland. Let's be honest, because these are the people who have to use a car. We have no public transport. Where I come from myself, there's one bus leaves in the morning. Imagine that for Alan and the other people there that are in the city of Dublin, and a beautiful place it is. I see double-decker buses passing every 5 seconds. We have one bus that leaves 7 o'clock in the morning and comes back at 6 o'clock in the evening. No other public transport. And that's the situation we're finding ourselves in. We have to use the vehicles. The farm contractors are in trouble. The hauliers are in trouble. The bus operators, last week, Minister Ryan came out and he said he wants to do a further decrease on travel for young people. Great announcement. All the private bus operators won't qualify for that.
Let me bring Alan back in. Alan, you've heard Michael's, I think, fairly searing indictment of government there. He's saying, look, we've run out of options. There's not enough being done. He accepts they can't do everything, but they can do a lot more, and we have to take to the streets to concentrate the political focus.
Look, I have sympathy for the truckers' comments before our contributions. I have sympathy for some of Michael's. We're all suffering, and the truckers more so than most. But my granny used to live with us when I was a child, and I was blue in the face hearing her tell me that an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. And I think that's where we are today with this protest. It's not going to do anything other than more damage to ourselves. And I wouldn't make any assumptions about how easy we have it in Dublin. Most of the young people that work in Docklands, because of the crazy height restrictions, haven't got an apartment in Docklands or even in Dublin, but have to commute in every morning from the surrounding counties. So look, I think we are where we are, and there's going to be no solution very quickly. But what maybe myself and Michael would both agree with, that the people and the powers that be that can make some decisions on this to lighten the load of those most impacted by high fuel prices. We could sit down, have a discussion and sort something out.